Your phlox is finally in bloom, and suddenly the green leaves look as though someone dusted them with white flour. Before you reach for the pruning shears, stop. That white coating does not automatically mean the whole plant needs to come down. In fact, cutting too much healthy foliage now can leave you with a weaker-looking plant without solving the reason the mildew appeared in the first place. There is a baking soda-based approach worth understanding, but spraying the leaves is only half the decision. First, look inside and around the phlox, especially the crowded lower stems and the plants pressing against it, because what you find there may explain why that white powder keeps coming back. Start with the leaves closest to the ground. On phlox, powdery mildew often begins as small white or grayish patches on the lower foliage, then spreads upward as the infection develops. At first, it may look as though dust has settled on the surface, but instead of staying in one harmless patch, that coating begins appearing across more leaves, and sometimes on stems and flower parts as well. Turn a few leaves over and compare them with the healthier growth near the top. If the white material is forming irregular powdery patches, especially with older lower leaves beginning to yellow, curl, or become distorted, powdery mildew becomes a much stronger suspect. What you don't want to do is diagnose every pale mark as mildew, brown or purple-edged spots, obvious insect-feeding damage, or simple yellowing. Without that powdery fungal growth can point to a different problem. Now look at how far the infection has traveled. A few affected leaves near the bottom are a very different situation from a plant whose foliage is coated from the base almost to the flowers. That difference will matter when we decide what, if anything, you should remove. But before those shears touch a single stem, look beyond the infected leaf themselves. Check how tightly that phlox is actually growing, because the space around those leaves can tell you why the mildew appeared there in the first place. Step back about 3 feet and look at the whole clump, not the white leaves. Can you actually see small gaps between the stems, or has the center become a solid wall of foliage? Are neighboring perennials leaning into the phlox? Has a shrub behind it doubled in size since you first planted this bed? And does the lower half of the plant spend most of the morning in shade with very little air moving through it? Those details matter because garden phlox is naturally prone to powdery mildew, and the disease becomes more troublesome where foliage is crowded, shaded, and surrounded by humid, stagnant air. And there's an important difference between powdery mildew and many other leaf diseases. The leaves do not have to remain visibly wet for infection to develop. High humidity and poor air movement can favor powdery mildew even when the foliage looks dry. So if several phlox stems are touching each other, another perennial is pressing against the lower leaves, or the plant is tucked beside a wall or dense shrub, spraying only the white patches may leave the real problem unchanged. Also look at sunlight. A location that was fairly open 5 years ago may be much shadier now because surrounding plants have matured. That is why, before we remove anything, we need to decide how much infected foliage the plant can reasonably lose without stripping away healthy leaves it still needs. If the mildew is limited to a handful of lower leaves, you don't need to sacrifice the entire flowering stem. Remove the worst individual leaves carefully, especially those that are yellowing or heavily coated, while leaving the clean green foliage above them to keep doing its job. But change your approach as the infection becomes more widespread. If roughly half the plant is already showing white growth, stripping every affected leaf can leave the phlox almost bare, and it still won't turn damaged tissue healthy again. At that stage, think less about making the plant look spotless and more about preserving the healthiest foliage, reducing crowding around it, and slowing further spread. And if the flowers are still attractive and the stems remain firm and green, powdery leaves alone aren't a reason to cut every stem to ground in the middle of the display. There is another reason to be selective. Fungicides and home treatments work best as protection for healthier tissue. They don't erase an established infection from a leaf that's already covered. So remove what is clearly deteriorating. Keep useful, healthy foliage where you can, and don't chase every white patch with the scissors. Because now we come to the treatment many gardeners try first: baking soda, and the concentration, and what you expect it to accomplish, matter much more than simply making the mixture stronger. This is where baking soda needs to be handled carefully, because the useful version of this advice is very different from the recipes that simply say, add more until it works. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. It can help suppress powdery mildew on the leaf surface, particularly when treatment begins early, but it is not the same thing as a commercially formulated potassium bicarbonate fungicide, and neither should be expected to turn heavily infected leaves green again. Colorado State Extension describes one baking soda treatment tested in powdery mildew research on roses. 1 tablespoon of baking soda with 2.5 tablespoons of lightweight horticultural oil in 1 gallon of water. But they also make an important point. The mixture is considered experimental. It was not established as a guaranteed Phlox treatment. So, if you choose to try a homemade approach, don't strengthen that mixture. Test a small section of your Phlox first and watch for leaf injury before treating more foliage. And don't spray a heat-stress plant in strong midday conditions. Horticultural oils can injure sensitive or stressed foliage, and they should never be casually combined with sulfur-containing products. Most importantly, spray with the right expectation. You're trying to protect cleaner foliage and slow additional mildew, not wash and advance infection back to perfect green. And before you treat the entire plant, there is one airflow test that may tell you whether the mildew is likely to return anyway. Now stand back and look through the Phlox from one side to the other. You don't need to see straight through it like an empty cage, but you should be able to find some open space between stems. If the center has become a dense column of leaves and neighboring plants are pressing into both sides, humid air can remain trapped around the lower foliage. Start with the easiest corrections. Move or tie back a neighboring perennial that's leaning heavily into Phlox. Remove dead or badly deteriorated leaves collecting inside the clump. And if one weak, damaged stem is buried in the center, removing that stem may create useful space without cutting down the entire plant. But don't turn a mature flowering Phlox into a skeleton just to create airflow. If the clump has 20 or 30 stems packed tightly together, midsummer is usually not the time for aggressive thinning. Make a note for next spring. When the new shoots are still young, selectively thinning some of them can create a more open plant before mildew season arrives. Also look behind the Phlox. A fence, wall, hedge, or shrub can create a sheltered pocket where air movement is much lower than it is only a few feet away. And that explains why 2 identical Phlox plants in the same garden can behave completely differently. One remains relatively clean while the crowded one turns white every summer. But airflow isn't the only part of that microclimate. How you water the plant and how much sun those leaves now receive can change the picture as well. Now check the soil before you blame the watering can. Powdery mildew is unusual because it doesn't need a film of water sitting on the leaf to infect the way many fungal diseases do. So the common advice that wet leaves cause is too simple. Humid. Shelter conditions can favor the disease even when the foliage appears dry. That doesn't mean watering is irrelevant. Garden Phlox performs best when the root zone stays reasonably moist during dry weather. If the plant repeatedly dries out, becomes stressed, then receives a heavy watering, that stress can make an already susceptible plant more vulnerable. A layer of mulch can help keep soil moisture more consistent without crowding the stems themselves. For routine watering, direct the water toward the soil whenever practical rather than repeatedly soaking a dense canopy late in the day. The reason isn't that water droplets automatically create powdery mildew. It's that foliage remaining wet for long periods can encourage other diseases, while evening watering can leave an already crowded planting with poor drying conditions. Then look upward. Is this Phlox still receiving the sun it had when you planted it? Or is a tree or shrub now shading it for much of the day? More sun and a more open position generally help create conditions less favorable to powdery mildew. So by this point, you've diagnosed the leaves, checked the crowding, considered treatment, and examined the microclimate. Now we can answer the question those pruning shears have been waiting for. When should an infected Phlox actually be cut back? If the plant is still flowering well and plenty of green foliage remains, powdery mildew by itself usually isn't a reason to cut the entire Phlox to the ground immediately. The decision changes when the season is ending and the plant is badly deteriorated. Leaves yellowing, dropping, and stems carry infection from bottom to top. Once frost or normal dormancy finishes a display, removing that diseased top growth becomes part of cleanup, rather than an emergency treatment. Cut the spent stems back cleanly. Gather heavily infected fallen leaves from around the crown, and don't leave a thick layer of diseased debris sitting beneath the plant through winter. Powdery mildew can produce overwintering structures on infected material, So autumn sanitation can reduce one source of infection for the following season. For disposal, local guidance does differ. Penn State advises keeping diseased material out of home compost because many backyard piles don't become hot enough to reliably destroy pathogens. The RHS notes that some common foliar fungi, including powdery mildews, generally don't survive once plant material has completely decomposed. If your home composting is slow or inconsistent, the conservative choice is to keep heavily infected material out and use an approved municipal green waste or disposal option instead. Then don't forget what caused the trouble. Next spring, thin an overcrowded clump early. Keep neighboring plant from closing around it. Maintain steady soil moisture. And if mildew returns severely every year despite those changes, consider a more resistant phlox cultivar when you eventually replace or divide the plant. Because the best time to prevent next summer's white leaves may actually begin after this year's flowers are gone. So if you're standing beside a white-coated phlox with pruning shears in your hand, don't make the decision based on the color of the leaves alone. First, confirm that you're actually dealing with powdery mildew. Then look at how far it has spread. Open up obvious crowding where you safely can, protect the healthier foliage early, and pay attention to the conditions around the plant, not just what you're spraying onto it. A baking soda-based treatment may help suppress an early problem, but it cannot compensate for a phlox trapped every summer in the same dense, shaded, humid pocket. And if the plant is still green, flowering, and functioning, those shears may not need to close yet. The better long-term fix is usually a combination of sensible cleanup now and better spacing, light, and airflow next season. When powdery mildew hits your phlox, does it usually begin on the lower leaves? Or does your whole plant seem to turn white almost at once?